Today, we're going to be talking about The Fate of the Furious and Gifted, so stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. I'm here with Matt Jason Statham. Hey. And who am I today, Matt?
I'm with Joel Cadbury Cunningham.
Cadbury Cunningham. Is it because I brought the candy in for us?
Yes.
Oh.
I'm 13 peanut butter cups deep.
You're growing a pound by the minute.
Yes.
Yes, I do like those Cadbury eggs. I haven't had one yet this year.
I had one tonight.
You had one tonight? Oh, I wish you brought
caramel Cadbury egg. And yeah, it was amazing.
I don't even know what they put in those. It's just like essence of goodness that they distill down and make sugar out of.
It's like 2 parts caramel, 1 part sugar, and 3 parts love.
I'm sure it's not real egg. That's my only thought on it.
It might be.
It might be. Well, there you go. Well, it's so great to have all of you here joining us for the podcast, where we actually do talk about films a lot, but we like to talk about a lot of other fun stuff. And, we are this kind of a show here. What we like to do is we try to play off this idea where Matt tends to be a bit more of a kind of a fan of overall films and fanatical, I guess.
Yes, fanatical.
It makes you sound a little scary. And then I tend to be a bit more of a critic, so we kind of do that fan versus critic perspective here in the way that we review our films. Right, Matt?
Right.
Yeah, so why don't you let them know a few ways that they could get connected to us right here at the get-go?
Yeah, totally. So you can get connected with us at Real Review Media on basically every social media platform. So that's Facebook at Real Review Media, Twitter and Instagram the same. And other than that, you can connect with us on our website as well at realreviewmedia.com, and then email us, get in touch with us, ask us questions, say what's up, and at realreviewmedia@gmail.com. So that's real spelled REEL.
I figured out the one social media we don't have.
What's that?
Snapchat. Probably don't need it, though.
We don't need it, yo.
We could be snapping people all throughout our recording here.
Yeah. Okay. It wasn't until like 2 weeks ago you realized we didn't have we did have a Twitter account.
We have a Twitter account. Yeah, that's a fail on my part. So, all right. Well, thank you, Matt, for letting people know how they can get connected to us. And as Matt said, we'd love to hear from you. Any thoughts, any perspectives, get connected on social media. And so, with that being the case, Matt, why don't we get into our first film that we're going to be talking about today? One of the major studio releases we had over this past weekend, I should say, which was The Fate of the Furious.
The Fate of the Furious.
Yes. Would you like to take us in on that one?
I'm going to. So, The Fate of the Furious. When a mysterious woman seduces Dom into the world of terrorism and a betrayal of those closest to him, the crew face trials that will test them as never before. That is the official description on IMDb, but stars Vin Diesel, Jason Statham, Dwayne Johnson. I can't say it like you can say it. Statham.
Yeah.
And then Dwayne Johnson, Michelle Rodriguez, Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, Charlize Theron, Kurt Russell, Natalie Emmanuel, Luke Evans, Elsa Pataki.
All the above.
Oh, that's Elsa. That's Thor's wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. Okay.
In real life.
Not
yeah.
Not in the movie. Yeah. Thor's wife shows up in the movie. It's
Surprise!
Crazy.
Spoilers in the new movie. Thor's married. There you go.
So I saw this movie.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about this movie, right? So
yes.
I mean, going into it, we've kind of prefaced it. These are those like kind of fun, dumb, shut your brain off movies or whatever.
Yeah, you don't have to take them too serious. I would say they've gotten much more serious over the years. They've gotten more, we talked about it kind of, I don't know what you would call it. It's like racing espionage. It's like a mixture. It's like race-spionage. It sounds really inappropriate. But it's this mixture of cars and racing and over-the-top stunts with some sort of espionage-type elements. In a very ridiculous fashion.
So here's the deal with this movie, all right?
Yes, yeah.
It's dumb. It's over-the-top. It's ridiculous, but I liked it.
Oh, there you go. Okay. And that's our review for The Fate of the
Furious. Yes, done. Next. Okay.
So why don't you talk a bit about some of the stuff that you did like then?
Yes, I loved the action set pieces.
Okay.
That was fun. I felt like... I will say this, in this movie, they do bring the cheesiness to another level with a couple of things. One of those things is a bit spoilery, so I won't get specific on it.
Yeah.
But it's it's fun. All the action stuff is fun, and there's some cool spectacle moments. There's no like spectacle moments I would say that would equal the
over the top
jumping from cars from buildings in Dubai.
Dubai, yeah.
So
I would agree with that as well. I thought the last one, not this one, the prior one, Fury 7, was more ridiculous.
Yeah.
Not that anything that happened in this one wasn't at times very ridiculous.
Submarine.
Right, but it felt more like they just were like, let's do something crazy now in the last one, and then they just did it. Like, jumping their car out of the buildings in Dubai.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if you can top that, but I mean, there's going to be 2 more movies, so we'll see what they plan next.
That's
but
true.
For the most part, I had fun with it. One of my favorite scenes, and you see this in the trailer too, is when Cypher or Charlize Theron's character, they take control of all the cars in New York.
That's a really cool
and
scene.
There's a scene, one scene in particular, while that's happening, all these cars are being driven towards this limousine, and there's a scene where they're all turning a corner at the same time, and they start like piling up. It reminded me of World War Z.
I would say that too, yeah. And she even said like time for like the zombie car attack.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's kind of crazy. I don't know. I just like seeing that. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
And then when they started falling out of the buildings, I thought that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, that was an excellent use of the slow-mo. They kind of set that up and make you anticipate something happening. Yeah. I thought that was cool too.
The Rock was good, and Jason Statham was good. I like their chemistry together. While it did seem, I hate seeing it seemed unrealistic because of Jason Statham's history.
We're going to use a word here we talked about a lot. It's verisimilitude, and they've done a good job at this point, I think, setting up the rules of the Fast and the Furious world.
Right.
You know, and so within that mindset of the rules of the Fast and Furious world, it made sense. Right. Is what you're saying. Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yes.
But not in a real world sense.
Not in a real world sense at all. No. Not
but yeah, you're right. They set up the world good from probably 4 or 5 on, I'd say.
Yeah, I think because I think I saw we talked about this. I saw the first one, and then I think I saw a bit of the second one, but it was so ridiculous. And then I didn't see Tokyo Drift, which I think was the third one.
That's fine. You can miss that one.
Right, and then I came back into it. I think on the 6th one. So this is I saw the last one and the one before, and I felt like they were doing a better job of getting because they were getting more and more ridiculous. Yeah. And then when I went to go back and see them again, they felt like they were more tonally focused. Right. They felt more well structured, and they still had the ridiculous elements to them. Yeah. But they felt like they fit, like the world rules kind of were realistic in a sense.
So I will say this, in this will kind of factor into how I rate this at the end, but I was able to enjoy myself more in this movie than I was in Fast 7. Is that what it was called?
I think Furious it was Fast 7? Fury 7, yeah.
Okay, so
I'll double check.
I say that not because necessarily I will say like the filmmaking was a better quality, but I say that because I enjoyed it more because every time in the 7th one, Paul Walker showed up, I just got kind of sad, and it was kind of like that, like emotional heft. So I watched it once, and I don't know if I could watch it again, honestly. And we'll kind of have fun with it, you know. I mean,
gotcha.
Obviously, I could watch it. We've seen movies before where actors have passed away, like The Dark Knight is a good example of that. I see, I'm like, that's really sad, but this movie is excellent.
It'll be a consideration, I'm sure, for the new Star Wars coming out,
right?
Exactly, Fisher and everything. Yeah.
So, I the enjoyment level is something that It was just so fresh in my mind going to the 7th one. This one, that wasn't necessarily looming over it, while there were elements of it, like some like callbacks or whatever to it, but I was able to enjoy myself a little bit more. There's a twist in this movie that I actually was a bit surprised about. I was I was like, oh wow, all right, you know, and it's
which part was that? Because that wasn't one that I.
Well, no, the twist I would say is why Dom is kind of betraying his quote unquote family.
I gotcha.
I was kind of like, okay. Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot about this thing. That's kind of where my mind was like, okay, I got you. And then something happens with that later that I was like, ooh, this is dark for a second here.
Yeah. Well, and I will say this too, to go back to the Paul Walker portion we were talking about there. They kind of, in a way, it felt like they had a person that they were not trying to put in his place. But with the TAC team leader guy, the new guy, Corey Maurer, the actor, it felt like they were in a way kind of trying to sort of maybe kind of fill a bit of a role there with him, but it wasn't like a super over the top thing. It was
who are you talking about?
I think I'm talking about
Scott Eastwood?
Yeah. No, I'm not talking about Scott Eastwood. I was talking. Oh yeah, sorry, Scott Eastwood, Little Nobody.
Yeah.
I said the wrong guy. I said Corey Mauer.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, I was talking about Scott Eastwood. He kind of even looked a bit like Paul Walker to me. I mean, personally, just a little bit.
I didn't see. I felt like they were I felt like The Rock had a lot more just like personal screen time rather than just I'm tough all the time screen time.
Yeah. They made his parentage a bit. I mean, the fact that he's a parent kind of relevant more so to the script in this one. I think. So from my side of things and my perspective on the film, I liked it more than I thought I was going to. I think because I wasn't maybe as familiar with Paul Walker and the whole story of the Furious, Fast and Furious and stuff. And when he passed away, it was sad, but I wasn't maybe as heartbroken as a lot of people out there that were a big fan of him and a big fan of the movies. And so seeing the last movie, I actually felt coming out of this movie that the last one was a lot more just fun and kind of silly, whereas this one felt very serious at times, especially with, the twists that you were talking about and some of the elements of how that story plays out, the betrayal elements of him and trying to sort of move past live in that world and be in this world of, having betrayed his really close friends. And I made fun of this a lot, but the fact that they kept in every one of in the trailer was always family, you're going to betray family. And I'm like, who's this family? Like, that doesn't even make any sense to me. But by the end of this movie, I really got a strong sense of what that was, and you really got a sense that the characters weren't just they were going from one ridiculous set piece to another, but that they were really dealing with the weight and the heaviness of sort of Dom's betrayal and, going against who they were in this group. And it really felt like at times it was difficult to watch in a good way. It was it's sad. That's really sad. I actually feel sad for those people, which is amazing because then you have these ridiculous moments where cars are raining out of the sky and submarines are launching out of the out of the ice and stuff. It's you have these ridiculous moments and then you're still able to at times, sometimes in some ways, not overly so, but still connect with the characters in a deeper way, which was good for me. It felt very tonally focused.
And some of the action, especially the submarine thing, minus the submarine, I liked. They took a page out of Mad Max Fury Road. Yeah. And some of the visual stuff was really cool. Yeah. If I want to start dipping down a little bit into some of the negatives, I'd say that there was, especially at the end, I didn't think there was a problem until the end. I started noticing it. There was too much slow motion.
The end felt draggy to me. It felt like... And that was kind of the other problem that I had with the whole movie in and of itself is it felt a little slow. And I know that you're like, well, what? It's got these ridiculous stunts. You open with this kind of scene that's pretty cool. It's got this not amazing, but interesting race.
It's kind of a fun race.
Right, it's a fun race, but it's over in you've got 10, not even 10 minutes, it's done. And then really no big action happens again until about halfway through. And then no big action then again happens until the very end. Then once that final sort of action set piece starts up, with Dom and the city and the football and everything, once that happens, then it's pretty much just straight up action almost all the way through.
Right.
But prior to that, it's just a lot of kind of tension, and there's a minor scene where they break in, but that's over in 2 seconds. So it's just kind of build up, slow burn, and it felt very slow pace. So it felt like a little bit, maybe if they'd done a little bit more to kind of disperse the action throughout the film a little better. But
maybe I didn't feel bored at all. That prison sequence was, I loved that, their banter. I thought it was kind of funny. Just The Rock and Jason Statham.
That was a great. I should give more consideration to that one. I guess I wasn't really thinking too much about that fight scene. I thought it was okay. I thought it was kind of silly. I guess that was.
It's silly though. I mean, they're kind of like superheroes. When the Rock kicks somebody, he flies into a wall 20 feet away.
Things like that. I mean, there's a scene where Dom's in his car, and I think he elbows his driver's door, and it just flies off. And I'm like, you can't just do that, right? You have to break the thing off. There's so many scenes like that, but you get used to that. Again, that's kind of part of the world. Yeah, it's part of the environment, and it's they can be ridiculous when they want to be, and then there's other times where it's well, for some reason I can't be ridiculous because
it's a comic book. I feel like it's really kind of like a comic book more, or like a cartoon.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, people can fall from 30 stories and somehow survive because they hit just the right partition of a building jutting out or something.
Or because they have muscle mass. That's crazy.
Mass, yeah. I thought that was a fun fight. I think that was kind of interesting and fun. It just, everything that was happening there, I kind of knew exactly where it was going to go. And I guess that's the whole movie. You kind of know where, that would be one of my other really big kind of faults at times, is that it really did feel okay, I know exactly where this is going to go.
Right.
I know these guys are going to, there was a bit of a suspense factor in just maybe they would maybe kill off one of the characters or something like that, or one of these other characters, maybe this person or that person. But we've gone through so many films now with them, and they haven't really killed anybody off. So
Right.
it's kind of getting to that point where it's like, okay, you need to maybe start shifting people in and out with some deaths or something.
Right.
Not that I want people to die in the movie or anything, but that just removed a little bit of the suspense for me because, when you've got these people doing these crazy over the top, like the guy can, be underwater and jump out of the water on the side of a door, a car door, and somehow doesn't even get hurt by I'm guessing the impact of breaking through the ice.
This is real life, dude.
Yeah, but like when you see characters...
Hold on. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Was it more grounded than the Smurfs?
Oh, jeez. That's two totally different kinds of movies, because one's a cartoon and...
One's a cartoon.
One's a cartoon and one's more of an action. It wasn't, I would say, similarly grounded.
Okay.
I know that sounds stupid maybe, but if I had to compare, I'd say, yeah, they're about equal. And as far as groundedness, one's a kid's movie. This one's like a ridiculous over-the-top action movie.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that, movies tend to, for me at least, when you get into a ridiculous over-the-top type action movie, if you go to the point where your characters are doing things that are so ridiculous so often, then it gets to the point where you feel like they're invincible.
Right.
And that's kind of what I was saying. And that's what it felt. Dom is invincible.
He's invincible.
Right.
Yep.
It felt like all of them are invincible. I mean, he's literally like explosions are like, they could like set off like a nuclear bomb like 10 feet from the guy. And if he had a trash can, he could like duck inside of it.
Or a refrigerator.
Or a refrigerator. There you go. Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. So it made me feel after a certain point, and I think that's one of the reasons it felt so slow at times, is because I recognized, okay, like these guys aren't going to die. This girl's not going to die. This person isn't. The only people that are going to die in this movie really are the bad people. You know what I mean? So then I'm just waiting to see how they ridiculously off this character or off that bad person. And that was kind of like the only highlight for me, is seeing how they were going to kill certain characters.
Right.
Which sounds bad, but that's one of the reasons why these movies are kind of just turn your brain off.
Let me throw this out there real quick before I give a score. I will say this, and I don't normally notice things like this, but I did for some reasons, particularly in the opening like 20 minutes of the movie. I thought Michelle Rodriguez was actually really good. She's not typically like, I don't normally like. So normally in the first movie, if you look at the first movie, she's all scowls the whole time.
Right, she's smiling in this one. She's a little more happy.
She's smiling.
But then she gets pissed and sad.
I know, right. But
more
I thought
sad, I'd say.
I think she played up. She played more like a real person than just a kind of scowling person.
Tough.
I don't know. It seemed, I was like, this is kind of refreshing.
Yeah.
Like she's smiling. She's kind of like talking about just normal things. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's really I had for it. But
so let me say this: I think they did a better job fleshing out some of the characters in the story. So I like that.
The Rock.
In a sense, all of the characters feel like I know them a little bit better now. I felt like more connected. Instead of in the prior movie, it was really just set piece to set piece, crazy, ridiculous set piece to set piece.
Right.
And then their character would kind of come out throughout those set pieces. This one, they literally spent like, a huge chunk of the first part of the movie just developing the characters.
Right.
So in a way, I kind of like that because I feel like I've gotten to know the characters a little more, and I do want to see where things go with them in the next coming movies. The bad as well, though, I really felt like the dialogue was just so bad at times. I know, and you can say that it is, but we're talking about the good and the bad here, and I'm just trying to give it a fair blanket review. And so the dialogue at times is just some of the silliest,
I'm totally
cheesiest.
Gonna rate this thing higher than you, I think.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, maybe. So the dialogue was pretty bad at times, as well as the plot really didn't. I mean, there was like the one little twist there. It wasn't bad. It felt focused, but it's not surprising. It wasn't like they were delving into these like twists, and there was just sort of at times like the whole like, how does the God's eye work, and why are they only putting it on one computer, and how come she can hack this person that way just by saying these things, but they work for the federal government where they've got thousands of genius level hackers and they've never been able to figure this out. Simple things like that start to kind of fall apart when you look into them more. But other than that, for straight up just solid action movie with ridiculous over the top effects and some decent character development, I liked it. The special effects were really good.
Yeah.
I never felt like, oh, that's super fake.
Before I get my score on this, you see the Rock basically was Maui from Moana in that whole soccer sequence?
I did. That was pretty funny.
I was like, he's like being Maui right here.
But that's one of the things where like it's kind of cute because it develops a character, but at the same time, that's so unrealistic. Like no person would realistically do that with a kid's team.
I liked him in that sequence. He's like the government guy is like
I like that.
He's like, hey, we need to do this. He's like, you're interrupting. He's like, it's a matter of national security, sir. Not while I'm coaching soccer, whatever it was.
Shows he's a good dad. You know?
Anyway, so I'm gonna give this thing an 82.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a B.
Yeah.
I guess that'd be a B minus, huh?
Yeah.
But I did enjoy it.
Yeah.
It was basically everything I wanted it to be. It was cheesy, over the top, fun. I had a good time. I did enjoy it than the last one. I already explained why. But yeah, I mean, I was actually surprised on how dark they took it in that one spot in particular. That's kind of spoilery, and you'll know it when it gets there. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, what would you throw this thing at?
I would give it actually, surprisingly, probably around a 79-80.
Hey-o.
So yeah, maybe a little higher than you were thinking. So yeah, kind of the B minus C plus range.
You were like anticipating this on a level of like a 4.5 or something last week. I remember.
I was super not excited for it. The reason I'm ranking it as high as I would is because I know that I went into it with some presuppositions myself.
Okay.
I was expecting it to be the same kind of silly tongue-in-cheek thing of the last movie.
Right.
And though it did still have those elements, like I said, it really played itself out, for me at least, to be much more of a straightforward action film with, at times, some very ridiculous over-the-top type elements. But it really felt character-driven much more than the prior films, and it really helped me get invested more in the world and want to see where it goes.
We're going to see more, dude. It made over $500 million this weekend.
Yeah, it's crazy. I think the only other movie was doing well right now was The Beauty and the Beast still.
That crossed a billion, actually.
So this one's kind of topping the charts right now for the studios. So
yeah, it's crazy.
Cool. So with that then, why don't we move on to our next film, which this is a film that, Matt, you did not, unfortunately, have a chance to check out.
Correct.
It's a limited release film, but I had the awesome opportunity to check this one out as a sneak preview that they were doing one of the theaters nearby me, and for whatever reason, I sometimes get emails saying like, "Hey, do you want to come check out the sneak preview?" I guess
he's special.
I'm special in that way.
You're special, Joel.
Somehow, yeah. But the film we are talking about is a film called Gifted. It is a film about a man named Frank, who is a single man raising his child prodigy niece named Mary, and he's drawn into a custody battle with his mother. It's directed by Mark Webb, the 500 Days of Summer director, who probably a lot of people know.
And The Amazing Spider-Man.
The Amazing Spider-Man, yeah, which, some people don't like that one necessarily as much, but they do know him for that. It stars Chris Evans as Frank Adler. You got McKenna Grace as his young niece, Mary Adler. His mom, Evelyn, who is played by Lindsay Duncan. And then I will mention Jenny Slate and Octavia Spencer. Jenny Slate plays a character named Bonnie, and Octavia Spencer plays a character named Roberta Taylor. But both of them are much more so kind of side characters to the main, the main drive of the story.
Cool.
And so this is one of those films I had seen one preview for, and it looked good, but it didn't look like it was anything all that special to me. I think Chris Evans can be a good actor. He's very effective, in the Marvel films, and I've seen him do a number of different roles where I think he's done a good job at them. But one of the biggest things for this type of film, obviously because it's about a child prodigy type character, is the child actor. And so I've seen good child actors and bad child actors, and thankfully this was one of the former. It was a good child actor. She did a really good job. This character, this girl McKenna, I think she'll probably have a lot more roles in the future, and I'm hoping she doesn't get pegged too strongly in this whole, because there's this tendency in the industry that like if a kid actor does one role really well, then they kind of get pegged as doing that type of role. They get very much typecast.
Haley Joel Osment.
Haley Joel, yeah. I mean, you got I can't think of his name right now, but the kid from Home Alone.
Macaulay Culkin?
Macaulay Culkin, yeah. I mean, and he was in the similar types of films all the way through. And so it's very hard for kid actors to kind of break out into a different type of role. But I will also say there isn't a whole lot of really significant big roles very often for studio films for kid actors. You know what I mean? Most of the time it's mostly a young adult to an adult flavored type film. So it's not like there would be more kids in films if there was just more kid actors. They just don't make a ton of films with a lot of really strong roles for kids.
Right.
So she did a great job, though. I thought she nailed it and sold it very much as this child that plays. So the story, and I'm not going to spoil too many elements of it, but the story kind of plays out that Chris Evans has, in a way, adopted his niece from his sister who had committed suicide. And his sister was this very intelligent mathematician who was studying and working to make this like significant breakthrough with this formula. So there's these different mathematical formulas or theories theorems. I'm not exactly sure the term that I would use at the moment, but they exist out there, and she was trying to prove it. She was trying to create a proof for that, and she was doing good work at it, and then at some point she kind of just lost it and killed herself. And so it sets up a situation where Chris Evans is with McKenna, and Chris Evans is kind of jaded in a lot of ways, and I'm not going to go too into reasons why he's jaded, but he plays this kind of like upset at the situation that was surrounding his sister, and he doesn't really like this idea of treating his niece as like this really intelligent child prodigy. He wants her to just be a little girl and to experience things like a little girl and to be able to have friends and go to, Girl Scouts and soccer and everything like that. Whereas his mom, who comes into the picture, the action that sort of enacts everything and kind of moves it forward is that Chris realizes that because he was home tutoring her, he was teaching her at home, he realizes that he's kind of given her all the information that he can, and he wants her to start to get used to being around kids and experiencing life, and so he enrolls her in a public school, but she very quickly proves herself to be this child prodigy, and she kind of stands out from the rest. And Jenny Slate, who I will say, I've seen her in some things that I thought she was okay. Parks and Rec was like, I think, the biggest role that I've seen her in that I thought she was pretty funny in, but for the most part, I'm not seeing her in too many other things that I'm like, love her at. I felt like she was a bit of a weak point in this film for me. I don't feel like she didn't really fit the role to me. Okay. The look of her, the voice. She's got a very distinct voice.
It's kind of raspy.
It's very raspy. It's kind of high. It's very raspy, and she kind of and I have a high voice too, so don't get me wrong. I might my voice can go pretty high up there too, but it didn't really fit. Like she didn't really. I don't know. So I just felt like maybe that was kind of like a little bit of a miscasting there slightly, but Octavia Spencer nails it. She is the property manager at this home that Chris Evans is renting, and so she's super well connected to McKenna, and she really cares about her story, and he babysits her and everything. Yeah.
When doesn't she nail it,
I don't know, man. She's a great actress.
She's awesome.
And Lindsay comes in at Evelyn, Lindsay Duncan's character, Evelyn, the mother of Chris Evans and the grandmother for Mary, McKenna Grace's character. She comes in after she gets enrolled in public school, and Jenny Slate basically realizes that this young girl is super intelligent, and they want to enroll her in these really advanced courses or actually get her to go to another school and get her a scholarship to learn at this much higher end, kind of a fast track to be much more successful. And Chris Evans is like, I appreciate it, I don't want it. So then his mother ends up getting involved, who is very much a big factor in his sister's life and pushing her to become as successful as she was as a mathematician and a prodigy and everything. Prodigy as well. Yeah. And so that's where all the drama kind of comes from, is this kind of custody type situation starts brewing between Chris Evans and Lindsay's character. So Frank and Evelyn are kind of battling over what's best for Mary, and they kind of build the whole thing around like who's going to end up with custody, which school is she going to go to, is she going to be allowed to experience this life and of a child or not. And I felt like the thing that was so awesome about this movie is it just felt very honest. It didn't ever feel like they were doing anything to purely manipulate for an emotional appeal. Okay. There was definitely emotional moments, especially later on in the story when you're getting to like the third act and the very end. But it never felt manipulative. It always felt very honest. And being somebody that's worked a lot with, foster kids and foster situations, it felt very realistic as to how that custody situation, the custody battle would took place. And there's court hearings, and it felt very realistic as to like how those court hearings would go. And so that was very good to me, and it felt very honest. And there was even moments where you would just have, Frank and Mary, and they would just be like on the beach, and they would just be hanging out, or they would just be spending time. And you really got a sense that they were very close to each other. It really felt like they were related. It really felt like he was kind of her caretaker. He was her uncle. And there's this really sweet kind of bonding between them, which makes it so much the worse when things start to kind of go awry when his mother gets involved. Right. So...
No, and that's good to know. I mean, a lot of that stuff that's presented in the trailers for it seems very straightforward. Yeah. There's not like a lot of big twists and turns, I would imagine.
No, I mean, yes and no. There are some twists. Okay. And that's the cool thing about it is you kind of it is a bit suspenseful in the sense that, and like not action, like who's going to die, but like what's going to happen here. Because you don't really know what's going to happen. And his mother is a very demanding personality, kind of manipulative at times. She wants the best, and that was the other thing that was really good. It felt like the characters were good and bad. They weren't just like this blanket, like Chris Evans' character wasn't just like well, I'm just right about everything and and I'm just perfect. And she wasn't like, well, she's just evil and she's bad. Now she had, and I think this is very relatable. Like everybody has probably maybe even a family member or somebody in their life that they recognize as like that person has these kind of warped ideals. Like they're a good person, but they look at things wrongly and they push people in the wrong direction because they're, maybe they're very driven or something like that. And it just felt like that was happening here.
Is it all like Sigourney Weaver in A Monster Calls?
I never saw that.
Yeah, you did?
No, I didn't. Oh, yes, I did.
You did? What are you talking about?
Yeah,
it's like one of our favorite movies.
Yes, sort of. Yeah, but I felt like Sigourney Weaver's character was a lot more... She wasn't as intelligent as this character is. She wasn't as driven to achieve these. But yes, very much like she kind of wants it a certain way. She demands things be done in a certain proper format. And it comes out through over the course of the script. You really get everybody has their own little story arc, which is nice, and you feel like everything kind of wraps up nicely and it comes together in a very beautiful and an emotionally fulfilling way. And it's one of these films right now that you kind of wish they would make more films like this. It doesn't really have an agenda.
Right.
It really is just talking to you about the importance of family and how to live your life and experience life.
Like the Fate of the Furious and family.
Yeah, there you go. It's a very family-focused podcast.
Okay. That's awesome. McKenna Grace, who plays a little girl.
Yes.
I actually watched Designated Survivor, and she's on that. I had never seen her before until Designated Survivor, and then I was like, wow, she's in Gifted too. So she's good in that. The biggest problem I know with you is and it is with me too, because when I noticed that, I know it was bad. I mentioned this. I talked about it in Prison Break with the little kid who just says lines. Kids don't talk like that. But in this instance, she's kind of a genius. So does it warrant more complex or more intelligent conversation?
It does. I think they handled it perfectly because in my mind, they pegged it correctly that she is a very intelligent person. She knows a lot of facts. She knows a lot of information. She's able to process things very quickly, but she's still and has the emotional presence of a child of that age.
Okay.
So she still cries over little things. She still freaks out over little things. She gets really excited. She likes enjoying like singing karaoke and doing little kid things and watching kids cartoons and stuff like, so she's got a lot of intelligence there, but she still has an emotional level that would be fitting for that person. And so I was able to access it. Now, if she had been like, super intelligent, she'd been like correcting all the adults and saying all these things, and she'd also like enjoyed reading, War and Peace, and what I mean?
Did the laundry and then did all the dishes and had fun doing it.
She doesn't like hanging out with kids her age, not because she's like, well, I'm not their age, or because she like think that she's like above them, but just because she feels like they're kind of stupid. And it's true. I mean, kids her age, and I was that age, and I did stupid things, unless if you're a genius, then you kind of feel like, and I think for a person like her, she's going to have to deal with that throughout her life.
Right.
But even in approaching adults, you would see it how, like at times she was very shy, and she would have that shyness to her personality like a kid would, in different sets of circumstances. And she doesn't process things. She processes things like a kid. Like there's a moment where she's having to kind of prove her intelligence to this teacher, and the teacher does something to kind of try and trick her, and she doesn't deal with it. She deals with like what a kid would. And I don't want to spoil how that goes, but she's like, yeah, that's that. And the teacher's like, oh, because she's treating it like a kid would, and he's looking at her like an adult. And so it was a good film. I really enjoyed it. I think weaknesses, if there were any, is that, the music was good, but it wasn't like, it didn't like seal the day. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, best soundtrack of all time. Cinematography wise, visually wise, it was okay. It was good. It was effective, but it wasn't like I was just stunned and in awe of the visual style of the film. It felt kind of like a very standard way to shoot something like this, but in a good way. It was very fitting. It felt like the camera was more just there to kind of just show you the stuff as it was happening. I think, as I mentioned as well, unfortunately for me, Jenny Slate's character just was not. Every time I saw her on screen, she just felt very off to me. Yeah, and she's kind of she acts like an odd person in a lot of the stuff that she's in. I think that's a lot to do with her voice and mannerisms. But so she was trying to be a very normal person in this, and I could have just seen maybe somebody else doing it. But So, any other thoughts or questions?
No, that's cool. I want to check it out. I think Chris Evans is actually a pretty good dramatic actor. When it calls for it, and outside of just being Captain America, I think it's really cool to see a little bit of diversity from him. And Yeah, no, I'm excited to check it out whenever I get a chance to see it. I don't know if it's not wide release yet, right? So
no, they did a limited release, and I don't know where it's playing, obviously, by whoever's listening here, but I would definitely, check it out on Fandango or something like that.
Cool.
See where it might be playing. So I'm going to rate this on a 1 to 100 scale, A to F. I'm going to actually give this one a A-.
Oh, snap.
So it's a pretty high one for me.
That's awesome.
I really enjoyed it. I would really suggest, if you get a chance to get out there, if you're wanting something that kind of is just fun and nice, and it's got some emotional depth to it, it's not going to kill you, it's not going to break you over the coals, but it's going to have some good stuff to it, I would definitely suggest checking this one out.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's
Cool.
really awesome.
All right. Well, then that, I guess, is going to wrap things up on the podcast here for us, right, Matt?
Wrapping it up.
Yeah. So, again, some good ways to get connected to us. If you want to check us out on our website, that's realreviewmedia.com, and we're always posting really awesome stuff up there. You can also check us out on our Facebook, on our Twitter, on our Instagram. Facebook is facebook.com/realreviewmedia. You can also find us, like I said, on the Instagrams and the Twitters, which is at Real Review Media. Real is spelled REEL, as always. Yeah.
Fishing Reel.
And you can check out, you can send us an email, I should say, rather, at realreviewmedia@gmail.com.
Or a telegram.
A telegram, yeah. Maybe you thought Fast and Furious was the best thing ever.
Or if you missed our pager, number from last week.
Yeah, I'd love to get some opinions out there on Cadbury eggs. Maybe somebody's got an ingredients breakdown. Let me know if there's any actual
egg in the Cadbury
That would be very odd. I'd be very surprised if there was. It seems very dangerous to include that, but considering how those probably sit on the shelf for how long.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, cool. So it was great being with you guys, and check out all the stuff we've got going on online, as mentioned. So anything more, Matt?
No, that's it.
Awesome. Well, then, it's been real.
It's been real.